Hi, everyone. I'm Jean, and I'm joined by Nick Whitehouse, Chief AI Officer at Onnit, to have a conversation about Anthropic's new legal plugin, which sent some shockwaves through the market. And so, for those who haven't heard, last week Anthropic announced a legal automation plugin for their co-work platform. And we saw 285 billion of market capitalization sell off in the likes of legal tech businesses and other SaaS companies. We saw LegalZoom lose almost 20% of their value. So, given this big market reaction, I really wanted to talk to Nick about what all this means and what happened.
Claude, and as they progressively move into Claude Cowork, they have skills and really they're just prompts. So they've created a series of prompts focused on knowledge work in organizations. The one that kicked everything off last week was the legal skill that they created. And that's really just a 200-line system prompt. It's nothing massive, but it's almost like a hobbyist starter kit for businesses to go, hey, we could build on this. And what it does is it allows Claude, when you're using it in your business, to play a role as a legal assistant, specifically in the areas of contract reviews, so giving you red, green, yellow kind of reviews of your contracts based on the standards you've told Claude to look for. It lets you write briefs. It lets you draft contracts and stuff like that. So I think things around the periphery, not necessarily hardcore work, but what created this scare is how accessible this becomes and only, the future versions of what this could be for all types of knowledge work.
So what's interesting is I think Anthropic traditionally has been more focused on the enterprise end of the market, OpenAI, consumer, although I see it's starting to converge. But some of the analysts are calling this the SaaS apocalypse. The market feels like traditional SaaS businesses are coming under threat. There's intensifying competition. What do you think? Do you think this is an overreaction?
I think the market is overreacting, but the threat isn't, I think, overstated. We talked about agents all of 2025, and what we're actually seeing is the reality of the hype that was 2025 starting to bear fruit in 2026. And there's a bifurcation of software companies. You have software companies that are systems of record that contain valuable data that integrate across enterprise, that have real value. They have distribution, they have network effects, they have those strong connections into organizations. I don't think those are immediately at threat. However, their business models may be if they're per seat. But then you have the other end of SaaS, which is point solutions, kind of flashy things that are solving a small problem. I think those are incredibly under threat by the growth of agentic solutions, whether that be within Anthropic through Claude, whether that be in ChatGPT, whether that be through Gemini. And so I think there's a lot of reasons to worry if you're an investor in this space. I think it's going to become quite hard to justify per seat pricing going forward. And that has traditionally been the driver of ARR and growth. So all of this money that VCs, private equity, and even, the public markets put into SaaS, which has been quite dependable, is now not so dependable. And so there is good reason for this kind of freak out. But I think there'll be a much longer tail than what the freak out suggests.
Well, because on the flip side, some of the legal tech companies out there have shrugged to the change and don't think it necessarily poses the threat that investors see it does. So I think it'll be interesting to see it play out. From the perspective then of a general counsel or a legal operations team, what should they be doing or thinking about? Does this disrupt any of their plans to invest in legal tech solutions or have already invested in legal tech solutions? And there's also that debate of legal specific AI versus generic AI. As you just said, this plugin is basically a complicated prompt. Will it be any better than what some of these vendors have produced?
First is how am I and how is my company using this technology? Because right now you have to be learning. If this is a prompt that somebody in Anthropic wrote, could you be writing those prompts? And could you be squeezing something more out of this AI that you might have access to. Learning that is important because that'll help you understand how you are resourcing your organization. I know that through this year, I'm going to be in hiring AI employees. There are roles that can be completely automated by AI. I know that there are roles that can be augmented by AI in different systems. And I have to think about how I'm investing in human capital to get the best bang for my organization's buck. The reason why that also becomes important because it drives what tools you invest in, what software you invest in, but also drives how you see and manage your law firms because this technology is also available to your law firms. So are your law firms using this? If they are using it, are you seeing the benefits of that? If they aren't using it, why aren't they using it? You would hope that they are putting far more time, effort, and research into how they can maximize the benefits of this type of technology to provide services to you as a GC, and making that very transparent. So I think that's the other thing I'd be thinking about. And then I would be thinking the two other things I think that drive off of that is like, yes, as you learn and understand how this is going to play out and how you how you resource your organization, the tools you use become much more strategic. Point solutions become much more consequential in the long run, right? Do you want to invest in something that may not be valid in a year's time? Does it integrate? Is it open? How are you paying for that? Right? If it's a seat license, what happens if you now have an agent that works for you, an AI employee? Like, how does that pricing work for you? So I think starting to think about that and thinking about how your organization is going to be using technology. Because, yes, you've got to do your job as a GC in your area, but also you have to think about the risks of the rest of the company using this technology and what is that exposing you to? Where is your data as an organization going? How are you governing AI use in your organization? What risks are you being exposed to through this? I think those are all things that are becoming heady topics, and I'm sure that many of them are making their way to the boardroom as well. And I think that is an exhilarating part of the job, but it's also a point in time where learning is incredibly important, and you learn through trial and error and doing rather than sitting back and waiting.
So what I'm hearing is governance is a question, being strategic with your investment is a question. Maybe you can use the likes of a Claude Cowork and have it plug in, but those are all questions for you to assess. But right now, it's really just a complex prompt and not necessarily a leap ahead in terms of where
Yeah,
we are.
yeah. To play on that, it's a bit mean to say it's a complex prompt, and that's all it is, right? I don't agree with legal tech companies putting their head in the sand saying nothing new to see here. I think that what Claude did with that plugin was make something far more accessible. Nobody has to go off and write a complicated prompt. It is there and it works quite well. So I think there's an accessibility thing that happened there. The technology to do all of the things that I'm talking about exists today. Bringing it together in a coherent way that is reliable is very hard. That barrier, though, is going to diminish very quickly over this year. We saw it in software engineering. At the start of last year, I was pushing our own company to move to AI-based software engineering. There was some resistance to that in the first quarter of last year, and by the end of the year, 50% of our code is being written by AI. And engineers' roles have significantly changed from doing to much more reviewing and planning. I see that happening to knowledge work, particularly in the legal space. That is the shift that is going to happen to in-house resource, and it should be happening to law firms as well. The actual writing starts becoming secondary to the planning, the strategy, and the reviewing of that work. Junior lawyers effectively have to start acting like partners in some way or senior associates to review the AI work.
Okay, so I think my takeaway is that don't necessarily throw out any AI, especially legal AI investments you've made so far, but expect that it is way more accessible and those working around you need to be looking at ways to incorporate it. Say you're looking at a range of legal specific tech tools. Do you put a pause on all of that and go and consider Claude? Or is that really more of a strategy for a smaller team with a smaller budget and you may be considering borrowing off your enterprise license with them?
I think the second is more true than the first. I would describe what we've just seen with Claude is much more home hobbyist kind of DIY. Like this is what the future is. This is what you could do. If you are a small team, getting a license to Claude might actually be practical for you. If you don't have enterprise systems that you need to integrate to, maybe it isn't a bad option to be thinking about that. So I think it gives you options. I think it's still too early to like throw out a process that you're already invested in. If you're a large enterprise, I don't think it's realistic at this point in time. If you're a smaller team, I think it's starting to become realistic.
Yeah, it's unlikely to give you the full-fledged solution to meet all your needs at this point, but I think the answer is that maybe you can find some other workflows that this could be used to leverage.
100%. And that's why I'm saying, like, use these tools and learn, and really start forming an understanding of what you can actually start giving to AI and what are those guardrails. There is a long tail to become proficient as an organization in these technologies. And it's really easy to get caught up in the hype from Silicon Valley because these people have been using this stuff and they have all these ideas and they're trying to make it work. But if you're a normal team waking up every day, going to do your work, the fact that you've got work already piling up over your head, the ability to get proficiency in this space takes time.
And we know that. We've gone through the fun of trying to take something a little bit more generalized and make it work for a very specific domain like legal. And there are specific needs and a bit of care and attention that you have to account. It's interesting. I mean, do you think they're going to eat Harvey and Lagora's lunch?
I think that there are a lot of wrappers companies out there that will struggle.
And define a wrapper business.
So a wrapper business to me is something that is extending a little bit from those frontier labs, built on those foundation models and just tailoring them to much more of a industry specific need. Those are very at risk because if OpenAI decides that actually it wants to go after the legal industry and build its own legal specific application, it's now competing with the largest AI company in the world. You think of all of these health companies that were just wrappers of ChatGPT for the health specific needs. And then both Anthropic and OpenAI created their health service. And so those wrappers start getting wiped out. I'm a big believer that there is UI value, that lawyers creating UI, I think is very valuable. But I don't know if the lifetime value of that is minimized by the improvements in these AI systems.
From your perspective, when does a solution cross that threshold of being an AI wrapper into something that's adding a lot more value? Like, what are the key elements that you would look for today?
There has to be a system of record. It has to be integrated. Once you've got that, the AI features on top of that, they aren't core. Like, it's not core to the service that it's providing. It becomes the interface. Those defining features, we're not a wrapper because we are creating a foundation or a platform of value that integrates. The other for me is if you're purely an AI native solution, it's like it is, are you using custom models? Are you using models that have domain specific training? So you're not just making the same API call with a better system prompt to OpenAI, you're actually doing something on top of their own models that is actually creating value.